Welcome back, guys. Last time we did some dynamic variable lookup as well as some static variable lookup with locals and static variables in Terraform. This time what we're going to do is I'm going to be demonstrating several Terraform commands to be able to tell you exactly what these functions in the dynamic variable lookup would do before you actually run the Terraform. That being said, after we've done that, I'm also going to be continuing on with creating the VPC, the Internet Gateway, the subnets, the route tables, the subnet associations, and so on afterwards. I want to be able to show you at least how to diagnose with Terraform first before we continue on. So that being said, let's go ahead and continue. So here, I've already gone ahead and got started, but I'll explain what I'm doing in a minute. So we're going to go ahead and run Terraform console in the parent directory of our Terraform files. Now, before you run this, you have to have your .aws credentials file set up with the appropriate actions or appropriate permissions, sorry. I've gone ahead and used administrative permissions because that's what I'm going to be using most of the time anyways. So it was easy for me to just go ahead and use the admin permissions and go and attach it to the user that I'm going to be using. So with that said, when I run Terraform console, and this failed and it's expected, which is a good thing, but when I run Terraform console, what it's going to do is it's going to authenticate with my AWS account, and then it's going to run a shell level of Terraform console. Now this is failing because I've got a backend file, and let me explain what a backend file is quite. It's just a state file of where Terraform keeps the current running configurations or current running infrastructure. So whatever infrastructure Terraform created, it'll save the details of that particular infrastructure in a state file and save it into an S3 bucket. There are other places where you can save the state file like console and so on, and I'll go ahead and link the backend configuration in the description of this video. But for right now, for me, I'm going to be go ahead and saving this particular, like all of my state files in my S3 bucket. Now my S3 bucket name is not going to be temporary. It's something completely different. I've decided to keep that hidden. So you will see temporary, but it's actually something completely off. Now there is one thing here that you're probably not going to quite understand easily is that workspace key prefix. What this is basically a Terraform environment, and I'll get to that in the future. However, this particular Terraform doesn't really need a workspace key prefix, excuse me. But I will explain it once we're there. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. All right, now that we've got that set, what I'm going to be doing now is running Terraform init. And what this does is that it saves the location of the state file, and it downloads the latest AWS provider module that is available in Terraform's repository. So let's run Terraform init. Remember, I've got my AWS credentials all set, so it's going to be using that to access S3 and all that other fun stuff. So now we can run Terraform console. And I get a shell level access. All right. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be copying this particular string that's in the curly braces, and I'm going to be going back to my shell and pasting it. So I don't currently have a workspace, but it's going to default into US East 1. So let's just see if it defaults into US East 1. And it does. All it's doing is that lookup, and it's going to be looking up in this particular, it's not an array, it's actually a map. So it's going to be looking at this particular map for this key, which it totals to nothing. And if this key, which totals to nothing, exists, then it's going to be finding the value of that key. However, if it doesn't exist, then it's going to be defaulting into US East 1, which is exactly what we want. In Terraform, you must remember, whether you do a condition or whatever you do, or use a function or so on, you have, like, the else clause of whatever it is you're doing must also be valid in Terraform. If it's not valid, then Terraform will still try to compute both the true and the else clause, and if it fails to compute the else clause, then it's just going to go ahead and fail and you will not be able to continue. And that is a pain. But there are functions like lookup. It makes it a little easier. You can write it as basically as like if Terraform.workspace is equal to Rails app, then set the region to US East 1, else it's AP Southeast 2 or some other region, else it's none. Let's just say else it's none. But however, region can't be none, and then therefore it'll fail, and it's just going to be bad. So your else clause must also be true, and you must find a way to make it always pick the one that you want it to pick depending on the condition. But both clauses must be valid. All right. So now that we've got our console up, we are able to see that this is in fact going to pick US East 1. So this function here is going to be in the right place, regardless of whatever this is. However, let's go ahead and set up a workspace and then see if it's going to be US East 1 real quick. So let's get out of here. Terraform workspace new. And my workspace name in Terraform.tf vars is Rails Nova. So we'll create Rails Nova. All right, now we're in the workspace name Rails Nova. I've actually got a little shell helper here, which works wonders. If you're running ZSH, there are several out there. I'm running Fish Shell. I submitted my own code to the sushi theme, so it works wonders. Now if we do Terraform console, we should get the same value. So let's go ahead and paste this, and we will get the same value. However, if we change this into, let's say, in this Terraform TF vars file to be AP Southeast 2, you have to exit Terraform every time you change particular variables, otherwise it doesn't recalculate because it's picking up from a save file. So now that we got AP Southeast 2, and now it says AP Southeast 2, even though it defaults into US East 1. But because Terraform.workspace exists, it goes into the value of Terraform.workspace. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and revert this back into US East 1. One thing I forgot to mention is that the backend.tf file requires a region parameter. Just underneath your bucket, you can put in a region of where the bucket's going to be located. Mine's going to be located in US East 1, so I went ahead and put a parameter there. And you can do the same. So region equal, in quotes, US East 1. Now, I like to keep all of my state files in the same bucket. So even all of my resources that may be in AP Southeast 2 is going to be in US East 1. Unless my resources are in GovCloud specifically, it's all going to be in US East 1 in that specific bucket. Hey guys, I've already went ahead and created, or at least written down the Terraform to create the VPC, the Internet Gateway, the public and private subnets, and the RDS subnet, as well as the route tables. Basically, there's no point in demonstrating all of this. There's no point for you to watch me write it. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be showing you exactly what I wrote. So the first thing, let's start with the variables. I've got my 2 citers for my public citers and 2 for my private. And these are just type list or type array. So when you declare them in Terraform variables.tf, you have to specify that they're type list. Default is string. Anything else has to be type list. So the other thing is that when I created the subnets, I'll show you exactly what I've done. Is the resource is AWS subnet, and then the logical resource that I want to give it, which is a public subnet 01. The VPC ID, I got the VPC from my vpc.tf. So I just created a VPC. The CIDR block is 10.0.0.0/16 and enabled DNS host names to be true. I've tagged it to be tools. And this just creates the VPC. So when I go to my subnets, I want to refer to the VPC ID. I specify the AWS VPC as the resource. Tools is the logical name that I gave it, which is this guy here. And the argument reference, in this case, which is the from the VPC ID, is ID. So when you say tools.id, it gets you the VPC ID. And it's the same thing with some of these other things here. And you just have to know that you have to put them in quotes. It has to be a $sign in front of them with curly braces, plus the resource type and the logical name that you gave it and the argument reference. Now, all of this information you can actually find on Terraform's website. So to give you an example for the VPC ID, if I do Google Terraform VPC, here's Terraform VPC. Here's the argument reference down here. Now I can get the yarn, the ID, which is the one I got, the CIDR block, and so on and so on. And I can put them in wherever I need it. However, I just need the ID in this case, which is going to where the subnet is going to be. And then over here, I've got an element block, which is probably a little bit strange. Element variable tools public CIDRs, which is the variables that we saw earlier. Public CIDRs, and these are element 0 and 1. And that's all it does is element, the variable name, element 0 and element 1, that's for public, and these two are for private. Down here, I've got my route table association, and sorry, these are my route tables, and these are my route table associations. So the route table is basically just the routes that I'm gonna have, and the route table association is which particular subnets I'm going to be associating that route table with. And that's pretty much it, easy peasy. Much of this is the same syntax over and over and over again, so I don't see a reason for you to actually sit and watch me do these things. So whenever you want to create something, I recommend you just do Terraform and then the resource you want to do. So for example, Terraform EC2, and it'll get you EC2 instance. Here's the EC2 instance. This is the actual resource, not the data source. And you have all of these parameters available. So right now I've got an error, and I'll show you what the error is. Now, Terraform validate shows me the syntactical error, which is like unknown keywords or invalid references and so on. And my error is actually on the route tables here. So if I look at it on the private ones, this guy here, the gateway ID, these used to be NAT gateway IDs, and that's perfectly fine. However, they belong in the route section, and I'll show you exactly how that looks in the document to be able to tell you exactly why it belongs in the NAT gate in the route section. So now you know if Terraform validates. So let's take a look at route table, AWS route table. This is the resource one, not the data source. If you look at it here, each route supports the following. So this is a route map, and NAT gateway is in the route map. So that's how you know it's part of the route, not part of the parent resource. Anyways, so now if I run Terraform validate, it should be good to go. No syntactical errors whatsoever. Now I'm going to run Terraform FMT to format my stuff, and all is well. So I run Terraform plan. And plan will give me exactly what it will create. So much of the stuff is computed. Some of the values are blank, which is expected. And you really can't get any better than this until you hit and apply. So let's hit and apply. So when we run Terraform apply, it says, do you want to perform these actions? Yes. Now, if you didn't specify a region for some reason, it will ask you for a region. However, we specified a region in my main.tf, which is coming from my local.region, which is US East 1. So I don't need to do that. So now it's going to go ahead and create my route tables, my route table associations, and everything and all that fun stuff. And then when this is done, I will get back to you guys, and we'll see how far I've gotten. All right, and we're back. There are a few errors that I ran into, namely actually regarding the subnet, specifically this guy here. And I'll show you exactly what happened. Here in my code, I had my CIDR block be the CIDR block of the subnet, which is not exactly needed since AWS automatically fills in the VPC CIDR block into the route table because of this value here. even though that provides a VPC ID, but AWS automatically does it, and it just goes to the local route. However, since I only needed the only other route to be the internet gateway or the NAT gateway, or however you want to say it, I had to just put in the 0000 values and make them all able to reach the internet, and then the public ones is internet reachable. So that takes care of that, and here's my Terraform apply. At the end of it all, I got my states running, my changes, and everything's complete. 4 added, 4 changed, and so on. Nothing destroyed. And that's the end of this video, so I will see you guys next time. Bye.